What my daughter sees in you is a great mystery to me. You're a very smart individual with very weak character, leadership, and decision-making skills. Do you have anything to say to me? Anything?
Hi, welcome to the 3.5 Walls podcast. I'm Austin Zwiebelman.
I'm Jackson Morrill.
And I'm Daniel Green.
And this week, we had Daniel pick the movies.
Yeah, so they messaged me, hey, after we just did the Cornetto trilogy, we don't really know where we're going to go with this. Daniel, what movies do you want to watch? And I had this idea stewing in my head ever since I first came on the podcast. So basically, you know how everybody plays a video game and they're like, hey, you know what? A movie should come from this video game, right? Well, nobody gives any love to the board games. What movies should come out of board games? And you should see these two's faces. They look so disappointed in me. So I took it upon myself to find 3 board game movies, and we're going to talk about 2 of them today. The first one is Candyland and the Lollipop Adventure.
The Great
Lollipop Adventure, which is one of the biggest pieces of shit I've ever seen.
Imagine
It was awful.
Imagine a soulless animated fucking movie that you saw on a kid's channel and dumb it down by about 20%. I would say more, but it's if you watched any of like the mid 2000s My Little Pony and Care Bears specials, it's that company that animated these.
It literally is the same company.
We checked the Wikipedia.
There were a lot of creative missteps. Makes you really grow to appreciate Pixar and any palatable children's entertainment, because they could commit horrible sins like in Candyland, The Great Lollipop Adventure.
Such as... Well, what was one of the first things you harped on, Daniel?
So one of the very first things that I harped on was, so it's a musical, right? There are songs in this. Yeah, there are songs in this, and the freaking lyrics are so lazy. Like, there are so many times in this song, like, an entire line will just be the same 1 to 3 words just repeated. Like, come along, come along, come along.
They do it a lot. I once had a guy corner me in a record store because he had to tell me the band America, the one that sings Horse with No Name and Sister Golden Hair, was considered the Nickelback back in his time when he was on the music scene, because they would have songs where the whole bridge was just like, la, 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 la. This has so many songs where they'll just be like, have fun, have fun, have fun.
Yeah,
and,
you gotta have fun.
It's terrifying. They really they have one song where the rhymes were just really fucking terrible. I think it was the Licorice guy, I'm gonna take over the world song.
Yeah. Some
of those rhymes were just like the kind where you just kind of want to like aim a gun at the sky for possibly creating us, and God might be there.
Yeah, because okay, this is gonna segue into another complaint of mine, but during actually I'm not gonna get too far ahead of myself, so it won't segue. But I am just gonna say, I just remember during that song, it was like, I think the chorus was like, licorice here, licorice there, as far as you could see, licorice, dickorish everywhere, yummy, yummy, yummy. And it's just like, that's so lazy.
Yeah, you're dealing with something that only 3-year-olds could possibly swallow and enjoy.
I think this is intended for if you're older than 7, you are under arrest for watching this movie.
That's too generous. It's honestly just like 4 or 5. This movie is just so mindless.
I bet this aired along Mickey Mouse Playhouse and Roly Poly Oly.
Don't you knock my favorite shows. No. Let's get into the plot of this movie, because this is like Primer. This is definitely like Shane Carruth's Primer. Like, I had to draw diagrams to know where in nonlinear time they were. There was like space travel. They dealt with the Afghan War, and no, it's like the Wizard of Oz. It's just they're going on this fucking gingerbread man who just looks like the
whose name is Jib.
His name is Jib.
Yeah, which is, I'm pretty sure, what the piece in the game is called, right?
Why is the piece named Jib? How do you know what the piece is named?
The piece's name was Jib, because I remember going, I think the thing that you play with in the game is called a Jib.
They named the piece. By the way, Dawn's in the corner.
Hi.
We have a live audience, so yeah, she thought.
Woo!
Yeah.
So the main character's name was chosen by Harper Lee, and he's with his mother, who's a tree. It's one of those plankton or Mr. Krabs and Pearl relationships where they're just two totally different types of characters. The mother is just like gearing him up for his grand fucking 55-minute quest.
And then one of 3 good lines occurs at this point in the film where the Jib goes, "Mom, haven't you frosted me enough yet?"
And so his tree mom sends him off with a little red pouch full of the stickiest green cum you could ever possibly equip your hero with.
Yeah, if you thought we were
icing, aka cum. It's cum.
If you thought for any second we were going to take this with a degree of professionalism and maturity, then you're dead wrong, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this movie doesn't deserve our professionalism.
So he goes on this quest to ultimately get to the end part of where you go on the board.
He's got to get there for the sweet celebration. That's what it's called.
We shit you not. They follow the path of the fucking board game, Candyland.
Yeah.
And it zooms out to show a rather seemingly okay dramatized version of the map of Candyland.
It's
the
pretty
board
great, yeah.
game.
This is like the least they could do.
Yeah.
And along the way, he sort of like a snowball collects various characters.
Well, wait. So first we hear this, and then we cut to the Candy Castle, where we meet the King and Princess Lolly, and Princess Lolly's a fucking idiot.
Princess Lolly, I'm surprised, is not Shadman's mascot instead of a skull.
Every time they said it, Princess Lolly in the movie, we were just like, ooh, internet culture was young.
We eventually learned their we learned their unit of measurement for time, because at the very beginning he says he needs to get there before noon,
Which is, they just end up using a totally different measurement of time, but they start with using ours, which shows that this script was not really written when they started dialogue recording.
So they measure time in gumballs.
How many gumballs have hit the bell?
Yeah, and then
To be
there's
fair,
like the
it
last
might be 6 gumballs until noon.
maybe, but also they're just like, oh, it's the last gumball, but then you look at the machine and you just see a machine full of gumballs.
That's skipping a bit ahead.
I know it is skipping really ahead, but he even says there's 5 left, but you look at the machine and you can see that there's way more than fucking 5.
Yeah.
And then there's these little licorice bites that try to steal her scepter, and that's kind of their role. Basically all she has to do is just stay at the circle for the sweet celebration, keep
And
her
not lose
lollipop
the
scepter,
fucking-
and not fuck it up.
Stop losing the MacGuffin, you dumb bitch.
Yeah, so eventually little licorice people try to steal the scepter, and they speak in 2 languages.
Yummy?
Yeah,
and
yummy, where they literally, all their words are yummy, or English when it's convenient.
Yeah, they'll just break into English. There is no consistency here. And I'm sorry, it's just fucking irritating thinking of characters who repeat the word yummy. I don't even like to use words like that. If anyone refers to their stomach as tummy, I immediately just pull a gun on them.
Yeah. So then we cut back to Jib, and
Did we have to?
yes, we do.
It's that childhood storyline where everybody who he comes across is either the one antagonist or homies. You know?
And when we say homies, we mean virtually fucking useless.
Yeah, he runs into an adult who's not an adult, which is
Mr. Mint.
a joke that's made in the text. And
Yeah.
Mr. Mint sings one of the best. These songs are you really grow to appreciate how in other musical songs have nuanced reasons to exist. You know, in Coco, it's oh, remember people after they die. Well, this song that Mr. Mint sings is just, you should have fun. That's the whole thing, beating you over the head 50 times over the course of this song's 3-minute length is just, you can have fun by bouncing. You can have fun by
Pouncing.
Yeah.
I think there's a good a third of the lyrics where there's just hee hee ho ho or something like that.
I'm 80% sure that they resurrected fucking Dr. Seuss to write the lyrics for these.
No,
and
don't you dare fuck with Dr. Seuss like that.
Oh
Dr.
no, they
Seuss.
call off his head because it was too clever.
Dr. Seuss could come up with better lines.
It was just the headless body of Dr. Seuss.
Are you saying it had sort of... Because the famous story behind, Green Eggs and Ham is that he made a bet with Ernest Hemingway that Ernest Hemingway couldn't write a story in one sentence, and Dr. Seuss couldn't write a story with only 100 words. And they both ended up doing it. Ernest Hemingway wrote Baby Shoes for Sale, Never Worn, and then Dr. Seuss wrote Green Eggs and Ham, which repeats the same 100 words until it's a whole book. And, that's fucking brilliant compared to this shit. You know what got my fucking goose? Okay, they're supposed to make candy puns throughout this movie because it's a Candyland movie and everything around them is candy.
Don't you mean pepperminterific?
Right, some kind of wordplay, and instead they use the names of various candies to complete their lazy rhymes in the song.
I thought I was going to make spittle, but here I am with a skittle.
When you're lost and forlorn, just eat candy corn. Like, they don't have puns, they just use the candy as filler. It's total fucking garbage. It's like you had very few jobs making the Candyland movie, and one of those was to entertain me with a shitload of puns.
I'm like 80% sure that the only people employed for this, this was a passion project, clearly, and anybody that was paid for it was the Chinese animators.
Oh yeah, that's another bit. So
jumping a bit ahead, we got to the end credits and we realized after, we're like, wait, all of the executive staff have passed with about 8 names between them total. And then we got to a block of about 40 Chinese names in a row.
And they're like all like animators or whatever?
Yep,
right?
they were all animators because that's how animation is still done to this day.
Yeah, so they just outsourced everything. It's great.
God bless.
Oh.
That was pretty bad. They eventually meet the villain, who is King Tentacle Porn.
Yes.
It's Lord Licorice.
Yeah, that's what we said, tentacle porn.
You're absolutely right, tentacle porn.
They run into Count Fuckula, who has this big cauldron of boiling black goop that he wants to, dip the scepter in, dip his wick in, and then use it to spread his tentacle porny licorice vines until Candyland becomes Licorice Land.
Yeah, his meaty tendrils will take over all.
And,
there's a whole bit where the licorice vines approach the mother tree, first in an imaginary scenario, and then later in what seems to be an almost real scenario. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, that does not come to pass because this is a kid's movie.
Yeah, they end up cucking each other back and forth, the protagonists and the antagonist's various minions. First, they get the antagonist stuck in one of those spaces from the game board, where you have to, draw a card of a certain color in order to get out.
The
peanut butter.
Yeah, Peanut Brittle. Yeah. Grandma Brittle, I think her name is. I don't know.
Who fucking cares? I don't play Candyland, and somehow these two fucks knew more about Candyland than anyone else.
That plot point is fan service for a 4-year-old somewhere. And you know that they're listening to our podcast. I've seen our analytics.
Oh my god.
And then they get cucked because they go to, the place where Gloppy is on the game board, which is where you can, get stuck and you have to pull a double card. It's really bad part of the game board. They fall into some chocolate muck. Antagonist grabs the scepter, goes to the castle, and ultimately the final confrontation is had. They befriend
Muck Monster.
They befriend the Muck Monster, who's just this big chocolate, looks like Muck the Pokemon, and all he says is hug. And I gotta point out, because I said this yesterday, the guy who voices the monster who just keeps repeating the word hug in various ways, he was working also on National Treasure the same year in sound department.
He was sound department for National Treasure somehow. Speaking of familiar names, I think the voice actor and actress for 2 Bionicle Mask of Light characters are in this movie. One who did Toa Tahu and the other who did Toa Gali. And let's derail for Bionicle lore for about 5 minutes.
No.
All right, fine.
Okay. That's like you pick a movie, I guess. I don't know if we need to be attached to that community. They're pretty
great.
They're pretty great.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could handle it. I might get too fucking erect to record. But Scott McNeil is King Candy, who's a pretty minor character, but that's the voice of Piccolo from Dragon Ball So, you know, there's the point where it's just like, you know, the scepter is no longer destroying everything. He's like, the scepter is inert. I just think it's so fucking weird because this guy, the director of this movie, whose real name, I shit you not, is Davis Doy.
Doy!
If you look at his Wikipedia page, he is like an assistant animator on all of these movies I actually like. I'm going to read them off real quickly. Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings from the 70s, American Pop, which few people have seen and more people need to, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island,
Yes.
Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost,
Yes.
Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders,
Yes.
and Scooby-Doo and the motherfucking Cyber Chase.
Yes! Cyber Chase!
Baseball! And,
Let's play ball.
Then he finally gets his directing debut in 2004, and it's My Little Pony Dancing in the Clouds.
Oh, God.
Like, imagine having that as your resume, and then you're like, all right, it's finally my turn. I'm going to helm a project. And they're just like,
MLP.
yo, how you feel about mayors?
I'm gonna have a stroke just the way you said that. Our Doy, he sunk so low.
Our sweet, sweet Doy. What happened to my beautiful Doy?
Look how they massacred my Doy.
So this movie's up for free on YouTube if you want to watch it. It's YouTube and Dailymotion, but the YouTube version is the better of the two. And
Apparently Dailymotion is still in use. I thought that was a news uploading site.
No.
Yeah, what we did was threw this into After Effects, threw on Red Giant's Instant 4K, and upscaled the 360 rip from YouTube.
Oh, that's what you did.
To 1080. We collectively ended up watching it, so it's like it was a group effort to make this happen. So we got to view this in like the sweet, sweet fake 1080p. And I gotta say, how'd you guys feel about the animation?
It was awful.
It might have been a leftover from just a 360p YouTube rip, but I can definitely say that it was Chinese animation.
So the other thing too, right? It's they throughout the entire movie they just reuse shots.
Yes.
Like there's a scene at the end when they're fighting over the scepter and they're just like throwing it amongst each other because movie. And
at least twice there's an occurrence of Jib just grabbing the scepter as it's about to land in the hands of a couple of the licorice bits that are the fucking minions.
It's incredible because like he's running from the right side of the frame to the left side of the frame and then he throws it or whatever, but then like it just cuts to them throwing it again and then they throw it and then again you just see the licorice bits running right and then Jib comes from the right side of the frame to the left side of the frame, catches it. It's like, how did you get all the way back over there again?
Because the licorice bits circled around, dumbass.
I don't know
how did he get there?
Because everybody's moving around.
They ran into a wall.
You ran into a wall.
No, I didn't.
I don't know if you guys have ever tripped balls, but it's not fun when a film reuses footage when you're tripping balls, especially if it's really egregious about it, because you already feel like you're susceptible to time loops and repeating yourself. And then you have this movie where it's like a whole 3-second distinctive shot of him completing a play. Like it's a triumphant moment when Jib catches the thing, and then there's just a little bit of fucking around, and then it's just the same moment again, and you're like, oh no, it's happening. I'm finally slipping out of time and into the back rooms.
Yeah, so basically this moment, the movie just fucking devolves into a game of football for 5 minutes.
Oh, I hated that they had to do that.
Yeah.
Because, and even when they have the scepter and the licorice guy is being held back by the chocolate cum monster, they still have to do the thing where, they have to put it in the center of the thing, and they still pass it between all four of them, wasting more of our precious time on this earth.
This movie had so much padding. It could have been over in a 22-minute TV special. Instead, they fucking padded every single ounce of it.
How did you guys feel when they, because Jib, his magic green cum is actually his offering for the candy festival at the end.
Yeah, so that's...
But instead he blows it too early. And,
so he shoots his load too early to basically, solve problems and to, get people stuck or to, help. In Mr. Mint's case, he fixes Mr. Mint's candy cane with his green cum.
Why is it so sticky?
Yeah.
Right. Peppermint?
Right. So he has to use the in order to accomplish the main goal, which is stopping Candyland from getting cucked by Licorice. He uses up his whole offering, and then they're like, oh no, what about the candy offering to complete the the final?
Yeah, you got to
part
sacrifice your candy.
Dark ritual.
Yeah.
What's really funny is that the kid just gets up there, just is put up there and on the pedestal for everybody to see, so he can announce that I used up my offering, helping everybody. They say nothing, and then he just starts crying until it finally lights up. So all it took was embarrassing a kid in public to accomplish
So he
the
cries
objective.
because Lord Licorice is like, yeah, you suck, kid.
But I still love Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson's take is the best.
All it took was embarrassing a small child in public.
To make the candy crop bloom into next year. I'm just glad they didn't take a Wicker Man approach. Like, they're just like, okay, well, now we have to throw you in an oven because otherwise the candy won't bloom next year.
I'm just disappointed that his arm didn't get bitten off at any point.
Right.
But I'm convinced that if there were ever a hypothetical sequel to this fucking apocalyptically bad animated special, it would definitely see Jib and Princess Lolly making hybrid gingerbread person babies.
Jesus Christ.
Like 30 years in the future in a weird cyberpunk candy land.
Oh my god. This is one of those like underground, you have to like go to a weird film festival to see it kind of movies, like Maori. It's like you put on a whole fucking event, there's people in creepy candy costumes and shit all around you, and then sometime around midnight they're like, time for the main event, and there's a dude just really indiscriminately passing out Molly. Welcome to Jackson Morrill's Candyland 2.
The Curse of the Sour Crystals.
Oh, dude, I'm feeling the sour crystals. Jackson Morrill's a fucking animation genius.
Whoa, man.
Animated by Studio Mer.
You go around just ruining direct-to-DVD like children's animated movies based off popular properties by turning them into steampunk fuck messes.
Well, let's be real.
Steampunk fucking
Given the apocalyptic qualities of this movie, I would say anything would be better than having to watch Candyland again. So that's exactly what we did instead of
Wait. Before we segue, there's one more bit that I really wanted to focus on. Austin, at the very end of the movie, right? We learn the moral of the story, and the moral of the story is that we thought that we had to sacrifice our candy to the Dark Lord Cthulhu, but instead we were all the offering. So they all get up, right?
And fucking
Austin, what did you do?
Oh yeah, I finger mimed a gun in my mouth because it was corny as fucking shit.
So stupid.
They invoked an Aesop. That was the point. And then a fucking portal opens, and it's just the opening of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, so then they go and they all get type 2 diabetes from eating everything.
They travel beyond Jupiter, learn the secrets of being the Star Child, ascend to godhood. They're in a room with various paintings and see themselves old. It was pretty direct ripoff.
Yeah, basically how every Candyland game ends.
Yeah, so this movie...
You just pull the monolith card, and you have to pull out the weird board that just tells you which transcendent dimension you end up in. Oop. You end up in the one where darkness is light and all of the things with weight don't have any. And you're like, what does that mean?
So now, there's a reason why I picked... So there's 3 board game movies in total, and there's a reason why I picked these 3 games. The first one was because how did this game relate to the board game?
It was pretty much just using the board game as an excuse to show off like 4 different biomes.
Exactly.
It also was like the progression of the board game, basically. Like then again, it does have like a conflict once you get to the castle. It was sort of like fan service for people who have gone to those places, know those characters, seeing them sing songs, have voice actors.
Exactly. So it was pretty much just like a 1-for-1. Like that's pretty much what I got, right?
Yeah, it was pretty direct.
Yeah. Okay. So there's that. No.
So after the apocalyptic quality of this movie, usually we watch a movie two or three times to kind of get a feel for it before we jump into this podcast.
I saw it 3 times.
Yeah, you subjected yourself to horror. It's no wonder you're tired.
Yeah.
Your soul is actively trying to leave your body.
Yeah.
But we decided, instead of watching this abhorrent mess again, that we would instead opt for a movie that actually is watchable once you get past the hour mark.
Yeah.
And we started up 2012's Battleship.
So funny thing about Battleship, right? I'm really upset that Josh couldn't make it today because I have been telling you and Josh for years that you guys need to watch Battleship.
I really wish Josh was here for this because Josh has a serious demeanor, in a sense, about military strategy. Just things having to do with the military without being like that patriotic, gung-ho, jingoistic asshole that we all know. Josh is like this very sobering, just like likes General Patton, studies, the Mongol history and shit. And it would have been amazing to watch him, force him to watch this piece of board game mixed with propaganda Transformers ripoff movie.
That ends with Fortunate Son.
Oh my god.
It unironically ends with this fucking Creedence song about not being able to dodge the draft. And it's Battleship is interesting. So I took some fucking notes before we get into the fun shit about the movie. Do you guys know anything about Peter Berg?
No.
So the director of Battleship is this Jewish guy from New York, right?
Yeah.
Jewish kid from New York, and he moved to Hollywood, right, after getting his BA in theater.
Okay.
And theater history.
Okay.
And he went on to direct this movie in 98 called Very Bad Things. His first 2 movies, he really tried to make comedies. Now, Very Bad Things, you guys, is a deeply fucking unpleasant movie. It's a movie about these 5 guys who, right before one of them gets married, goes on a little bachelor party and they kill a hooker and bury her in the desert.
Oh my God.
It's a black comedy. And Roger Ebert, when he was writing about it, he gave it a bad review and he said, it's not a bad movie. It's just a reprehensible movie. Everything, imagine if you took The Hangover and every bad thing that white guys do, you take it to the nth degree. And that was his debut feature, which is forgivable because he learned from it and made The Rundown with The Rock and one of those without a paddle looking motherfuckers as his co-star. And this was a well-received comedy movie, right? It's The Rock going to the jungle to retrieve this guy, take him back to LA to have to deal with his father, right? He's kidnapping a guy for $250,000 or something and get out of jail. I don't fucking care. So he goes to the jungle and then Christopher Walken is hey, this guy you're trying to kidnap has some treasure that I want. And they fight. And it got good reviews, except here's the whole crux of the Peter Berg thing. This guy cannot make money, okay? Very Bad Things lost $10 million at the box office. The Rundown lost $5 million, and this is without marketing costs even considered. So then he gets a fucking screenplay from his cousin called Friday Night Lights, based off a book that his cousin wrote. And Friday Night Lights, this fucking sports movie, it's not a fun comedy, it's a fucking sports movie, a crowd pleaser, finally doubles its budget and makes $62 million off a $30 million budget. Then he goes, okay, so these fucking American idiots love my shit. So he makes The Kingdom, this fucking action military movie with Jamie Foxx in it. That barely makes on a $72 million budget, that makes $86 million. He goes on to make Hancock with Will Smith.
Oh my god, that movie was pretty good.
I love Hancock. That was a classic for watching with my dad.
Hancock's a whole fun story, but I'm already going on too long. Hancock, off $150 million, makes $624 million. So that is a hit where you get champagne from the studio level hit. Yeah. You did good. So he's thinking all right, I can't go back to making comedies, but he's still, a comedy filmmaker. You can tell deep down Peter Berg wants to make comedies, but he can't because he doesn't think they'll make any money. Yeah. So he finds the safe middle ground. He has a studio approach him with this fucking military movie. He's already got experience dealing with military films. And they're just hey, can you just inject it with a little bit of funnies? And he's sure, I can make a military movie with some funnies in it. And they're sure. It's based off Battleship, the board game. And we are here now.
From what I read, he actually approached the studio and said, you got any scripts? And they're like, we have all this shit from Hasbro, and they're getting on us because we're not paying royalties to sit on these licenses.
Yeah.
Right. And Battleship was like, he's just like, oh... And then he just took the Battleship script and left. Which may not have been a script as much as the instructions to the board game.
This movie is based off of a game for kids 7 and up. Any Battleship board game that you find will just say, based on kids 7 and up. And I think that this movie would play really well with 7-year-olds. You can tell from the beginning because they're talking about the planet that the alien invaders come from. And instead of saying, like, oh, it's got this going on with its atmosphere, this going on with its water, and, like, using science speak, like, I could name a million interesting things about a habitable planet being near us. How far is it? Whatever. Instead, they talk about Goldilocks and the 3 bears. And the bar for dialogue in this movie is immediately set as just, ooh, drunk uncles and 7-year-olds.
Yeah, no, the drunk uncle part comes when this really hobo, knockoff TJ Miller looking motherfucker just says, it's like if the aliens find us, it'll be like Christopher Columbus and the Indians, except we're the Indians. So already we're also lumping racial insensitivity into there.
Hell yeah. Let's go.
But then once we're past that sort of cringy, like, beginning of fucking Independence Day ass, we're contacting a planet, what hath God wrought? We get the best scene in the movie.
So main character goes to bar. Main character
is brought to a bar for his birthday.
Yes, and main character is, what was the word you used?
Oh, fuckboy McPhailson.
Yeah, fuckboy McPhailson, right? So fuckboy McPhailson spends his birthday wish on a girl.
Ooh. Another
don't waste.
Another catering to your 7-year-old audience is just, oh, your birthday wish is significant.
Right.
Significant enough to influence the plot.
Yeah.
So, a total just Sports Illustrated looking person walks by him, blows out the candle, and then we have the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It's burrito adversity. She walks up to the bar and is like, yeah, I'll have some alcohol and, like, a chicken burrito. And the bartender is like, sorry, closes a microwave behind him that was open for no fucking reason. And it's just like, kitchen's closed. Like,
Pool's closed.
Like, for this Sports Illustrated looking model bitch, he wouldn't microwave a burrito?
It's wild. She has the exact same energy behind her performance as the chick from Transformers 3.
So the main character walks up to her drunkenly, and she's not having much of it, and he's like, what's your name? And she's like,
I'm hungry.
Hi, hungry. I'm Dad.
and he said, I can't not remember, because we decided not to put subtitles on for this. We just wanted to get an interpret, but I'm pretty sure the line was along the lines of, I asked for your name, not how you're feeling.
Yeah, it was something like that.
And it couldn't have been anything less clever if you had tried.
And then there's the ultimatum of the fucking century. Like, so I'm going to go and watch, like, Sophie's Choice later tonight, and when Meryl Streep has to choose between her 2 children at a Holocaust camp, I'm going to be like, yeah, but, like, you couldn't have gotten a chicken burrito in under 5 minutes. The main dude in Battleship, like, you don't have shit on him. So he gets this ultimatum. He's like, give me 5 minutes and I'll get you a chicken burrito, babe.
And she says 5 minutes starting now.
And so, the clock engages and he's got to go find the 3 Chaos Emeralds. And so he runs across the street to the gas station where we get the fucking second instance of this chicken burrito adversity. Where he's just like, the woman's just locking up the store and he runs up and he's just like, no, wait. And he's like, come on, I just got to go in and buy a chicken burrito. And she's like, no, it's too late for a chicken burrito. Too many complex carbs.
Yeah.
And there's just people directly adversarial towards the idea of people eating burritos at this hour. That class of people we always run into. They're a bigger block than Trump voters, People who want to control where and when we eat our fucking chicken burritos.
So proceed to enter the licensed Pink Panther theme song as he then scales the building, breaks through a fucking roof and to get below the main roof and into the drop tile ceiling, which he then falls completely through, knocking out a minimum of 2 tiles in the process.
And we see this all on security footage.
It's very glitchy security footage for no other reason than it can be glitchy.
It's hilarious.
This deceived me into thinking this movie movie was going to be really over the top funny.
Let's be real. That is the only scene that carries this kind of tone. The rest of the movie is the same kind of tone as the military scenes in Transformers.
Oh, yeah,
which are arguably some of the better scenes in Transformers.
How'd you, because Jackson, this was your first time seeing it, how'd you feel when later, after the whole 5 years later, because he gets in trouble.
He gets in trouble and his brother just says, all right, fucknuts, you're going to the Navy. And then 5 years later, he's accelerated despite having a felony for breaking and entering to be a Navy fucking, what is his rank? He's not a captain until the end.
He's a
lieutenant. He's a lieutenant.
He's a colonizer. And
yes.
This fucked me up so much when I saw it in theaters. He goes over and the girl is there.
Oh.
Like, the most pathetic, like, tell your girls over Cosmos, I shit you not, this happened to me once story, authentically becomes her, like, I want to marry this guy relationship.
He doesn't
I
give
would
up.
marry somebody who ran away from the cops to give me a chicken burrito.
Not just ran away, but crawled forward after being tased once to hand her the chicken burrito and then got tased again.
That's marriage material.
He's up there with the I can break these cuffs and like the
You can't break these cuffs.
The I'll get you bitch guy. Like he gets tased and he's still trying. And I bet it's cooking the burrito in the process.
He did cook the burrito. There is a distinct two different shots from the same security camera of him putting the burrito in a microwave so that it is warm when he delivers it to
What
her.
if the electricity from the taser magically cooked the center of the burrito? That's actually like what made her wet and want to marry this guy. It's just,
He's like,
he was
this
the
is
first.
the best burrito I have ever had from a microwave.
He was the first guy to ever present her with what should be the Philosopher's Stone of frozen burritos. And it's all because, he took a taser to his ripped ass back.
Yeah, and then it cuts to 5 years later. Not only is she dating him still, but we discover right before that she is the daughter of the admiral that is stationed at fucking Pearl Harbor, because this movie takes place in and around Hawaii.
Who is played by none other than
Bad
the
cop.
great Liam Neeson.
Bad cop.
Bad cop.
Oscar Schindler. I'm just going to sneak in as many Holocaust movie references as I can. Because we're doing a podcast about board games. Like, just...
Are we insinuating? Oh yeah, Ticket to Ride is a Holocaust game.
Yeah. Oh my god. Get out of here.
I just want to make sure that any audience that enjoys board games won't enjoy my sense of humor. But he's still, all these years later, even though he, like, magicked his way into being a competent person, from being the most typical 26-year-old that you could find these days, living on a couch, no car, $70 in his bank account, like a very typical thing to fall into. But if you're in a military family and you're white, what are you doing? You're supposed to have that nepotist leg up. Like there's a point where his brother in the beginning of bar scene is just like, hey, you can call a guy and he'll get you a construction job, all you have to do is call him. And I'm like, this is right for the white military family crowd. Like I've never had that offer where it's just like, yeah, just call him and you'll get the job, guaranteed. So he fucking uses this platform to jump ahead 5 years, but we very quickly find out he's still a giant shit.
Yeah, I
He's
think
grown zero.
There is a point where his girlfriend outright says, "Stop messing things up," to him on the phone.
Yep.
Right after he apologizes, he's like, "I'm sorry I didn't ask." Because the whole crux of this movie and his driving force is that he wants to impress the Admiral so that he will give him permission to marry his daughter. And he chickens out of asking the first time on a celebration of the USS Missouri, which is a battleship from World War II that has still... Is it from World War II?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. The USS Missouri, which is permanently docked in Hawaii on Pearl Harbor. And at the time, it had been like 10 years since it had last seen active service. It had been deactivated since 2002.
And he gets in a fight with a guy because of a soccer game.
Yeah,
This is kicked in the dome.
Yeah, basically this whole movie, after the scene where he gets the burrito, and it just stops being interesting to watch and pay attention to.
Until
So he gets kicked in the dome in a soccer game on just sort of like a physical fuck up, and then he takes a kick that he shouldn't have taken and misses the goal. Goes onto the ship, is in the bathroom. Asian guy who kicked him in the face walks in. He beats they beat the shit out of each other, and then Liam Neeson is reprimanding them, and that's the context under which he's supposed to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage. Is just Liam Neeson being like, "Hey, why are you like world starring on my fucking boat?"
There's even a point where he specifically says,
"Is there any battleship, sir?"
There's even a fucking point where he just specifically says, "Is there anything else you want to say to me?"
And he just stares off for like maybe 10 seconds and just goes, "Negative."
Yeah.
Speaking of this actor, I think it's Taylor Kitsch or something.
Yeah.
He looks like a really shitty version of Tom Cruise.
I thought he looked like a shitty Channing Tatum.
Yeah, same actually.
Probably a mix of both.
Did you guys like how many Japanese people there were around this? Around Pearl Harbor.
Oh no!
I was having a great time because it wasn't like a multinational, like a big culturally diverse film where there's everybody's Navy there. It is specifically the American and Japanese Navy personnel hanging around.
It's because they were actually planning a war games exercise of Japanese Navy versus American Navy to see whose naval strategies were on top and whose commanders were on their A game. And then the group has to join forces because the break into Act 2, fucking alien ships approach at like double the speed of light and enter the atmosphere, except one of them hits a satellite which causes it to crash into Hong Kong because, yes, that's obviously near the Pacific Ocean, about 2 miles outside of Hawaii's coast.
And the film splits into two different running plots. One that's definitely the B plot. The A plot is Taylor Kitsch on his and like under this dome created by like an energy field.
Yeah, they made like a mile or so long energy dome that just encompasses Hawaii and the surrounding ocean.
Nothing gets in or out because they have to simulate the conditions of a contained game board with a limited number of ships, right?
Yeah.
So that's the whole gimmick.
Yeah,
Then,
that's great.
outside, we have Taylor Kitsch's girlfriend, the girl from the bar.
No, they're inside because Hawaii is inside still.
Are they inside the dome?
No,
Yes,
Hawaii's
because-
not inside a dome.
Hawaii is inside the dome.
Hawaii was inside the dome.
Hawaii
Okay.
was inside the dome because the alien ships could still land.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
they were inside the dome.
B plot is Taylor Kitsch's girlfriend, who is shown like we cut to her, and she's a physical therapist. She helps people, kind of like deal with the fact they have prosthetic legs. One interesting little side: somebody has a prosthetic leg with a bunch of like automatic firearms on it, and I thought that was just really fucking tasteful, like not a cursed object at all, So she
It's like Sin City.
she meets up with this fucking... It's not guns attached. It's just a prosthetic leg covered in images of shit that causes people to get prosthetic legs.
Oh no!
So she goes up to her homie for the journey, which is wonderful actor, real life amputee,
And had never acted before this movie.
Really? That's
character
good.
named Mick. He has the same intensity of just like fireworks like that go off but like fuck up and they come at you.
I would compare it to like a
I have
gas
a
burning
personal story
stove
with
turned
that.
to its top setting.
When you light the gas stove and it's still making a ticking noise and you can smell the gas coming out, that's this guy's stare. He's so fucking good in this movie.
I mean, he was, and I guess no, he is a veteran.
So
he is a veteran.
He got one of those very thankful roles where it's just like, hey, can you act like a badass who has to get over the fact that he's not a full soldier but still really scary? And it's just like, yes.
His words.
All of his line deliveries are flat in the best way. It's
Yes.
totally fitting for the character.
So they their thing is that they're gonna take a little jaunt, take a gallivant up a Hawaiian mountain to get Mick to stop being such a fucking sourpuss. And then along the way, the alien invasion happens, and they find out that the aliens are trying to use these satellite dishes up the mountains.
That were part of the experiment to beam the fucking signal saying, "Hi, we're Earth," to this planet that's in the habitable zone of a different star.
Hi, Earth. I'm dead.
So the aliens are throughout the course of the movie trying to, like, the ground aliens, the ones not playing Battleship, are trying to use these satellite dishes in order to contact, backup.
Yeah, because essentially, and this is literally, I had to read the TV tropes manual, and there's a point where it's very vaguely explained in the film. What happened was the ship that crashed in Hong Kong after hitting a satellite and dying was the fucking communications ship. So they didn't have a backup for that. And now they need Earth's super relay that can beam messages into space with no regard for signal travel time or the speed of light or anything. And just...
Jackson,
bring it back. And so they can call for reinforcements. Because apparently what landed on Earth was a fucking science team. A science team with warships that outclass anything Earth has fucking seen.
Signal travel time?
Yes.
Jackson, this movie puts the bro in Hasbro.
How long were you sitting on that one, you son of a bitch?
Since this part of my notes.
What? Where is it?
I see it right there.
It was right after that funny scene where the guy gets cucked by NASA and the Air Force. and before the part where Mick says, I ain't never seen an alien. You seen an alien? I finally have a note system because I feel like it leads to better podcasts. I have stars by the parts that I like. There are 2 parts of this movie besides the burrito scene, which is just a short film that they play before this, I'm considering. Yeah. There are 2 parts of this movie that authentically just made me smile and go, holy fuck, that's good. One is right when the aliens are coming down, the spaz scientist character, because this is a Michael Bay analog, so they have a scientist who knows his shit, right, and is a like smart science boy.
Also an asshole.
He acts like a tweaky dickhead nerd because at the end of the day in bro movies, the scientist, fuck you, I've got gun. That's the Michael Bay scientist. It's an archetype. So he's sees these shits come up on his radar, the invading aliens, and he calls some people, and he's just like, hey, we should probably call NASA. And they're like, oh, NASA's on the line, actually. They're calling us.
And it tabs to a different screen, and it's literally the entirety of NASA's control room just staring at a screen.
And you have this scientist asshole up on their giant screen. They're all just staring at this guy.
And also, this guy's eyes are locked in, like, half open. He looks like he'd hit a blunt a half hour before arriving on set.
And he's got the long, shaggy stoner hair. And then, like, 2 minutes later, he's just like, okay, well, the ships have entered the atmosphere. We should probably call the Air Force. And they do the same gag. They're like, well, the Air Force called us, too. And they cut, and it's just the Air Force commanding, like, personnel just staring at this guy again.
And so, like, we suggest you prepare for an assault. What do we do? And he just says brace. And that's when the aliens land in the ocean.
Yep.
Kicking off Act 2 for realsies.
Yeah.
Except for the one ship, which 9/11's Hong Kong. I guess for foreign market appeal.
They've got the ships have officially crash landed. The B plot decides to move closer, and Mick has the best justification ever. She's just like, "Hey, where are you going?" Because cops just told them to turn back and get to shelter, and he's like, "I ain't never seen an alien. Have you seen an alien?" And just keeps walking towards danger.
Definitely the best part
Incredible
of the movie.
It was so good.
And then we begin the act where I was just like pacing issues just beating me the fuck over the head. Because there was just a lot of... The highlight of Act 2 is when his brother dies.
Right. Okay, I will be honest with this. Personally, as somebody who is a fan of at least 3 movies in the Transformers franchise, and I will let you guess which 3 those are, I thought that basically the movie after the aliens land spoke in a language that worked for me and may not work for other people.
Just quick. First one, Revenge of the Fallen, Bumblebee.
Yes.
Got it. Fuck yeah.
Yes. It's surprisingly, I liked Revenge of the Fallen more than Dark of the Moon, even though I admit Revenge of the Fallen has more issues.
I just knew that, like, Creed disappeared kind of after the 90s. I just didn't know they went and colonized a planet and became a whole race of aliens. like the aliens of this movie have the shittiest design. They have, like, funky-looking fingers. I think they have, like, 4 fingers that kind of make a doofy.
Their hands look like the elites from Halo.
But then they have
goatees made of porcupine quills.
Pointy goatees made of The aliens are all goateed as look at this photograph, like just a bunch of those.
It's just a bunch of... Who's the fucking lead singer for Nickelback? I forgot his name.
Kroger, what's his name?
Chad Kroger. It's just Chad Kroger, the alien. Regardless, I mean, yeah, the...
Do you think their blood is just Guy Fieri donkey sauce?
Yes.
So the other thing about these aliens, right? And this is what I love. This is why I think this movie is incredible, right? So you have like the aliens' weapons, right? So how? So
yeah,
you know,
I was very indignant about this part.
This movie is called Battleship, and so what else do we use to fire? Like as an enemy, right? So there's these little things that just kind of like...
They're missiles.
Yeah, they're missiles that just stick to inside the boat and then blow up, that are just in the fucking shape of the peg that's in the game, and it's amazing.
I was fucking indignant at this part because it looked like a gag in a Corridor Digital video.
It was incredible. When I first saw that, I just busted out laughing. The first time I watched this movie, I thought it was the funniest thing. I was like, this is how you make a Battleship movie.
There's a point where it just... There's a fucking point where it implants itself in a boat. Some characters stare at it and look at that and they're just like, what is it? And then it blows up!
It's incredible!
So fucking seriously, but it's a peg from Battleship.
It's so great!
And you know what's printed on the sides of the peg from Battleship?
What?
Diagrams of the peg from Battleship!
Oh no. This movie has more pegging than my marriage. God. There's this really fucking cool scene where his brother's on the boat, and they need the main character to stop being the fuck up he's been forever. So, you know, they've already demonstrated these pegs explode, and then, like, the next time that they fire pegs, because, you know, the military people are, like, trying to shoot them out of the sky... The next time the aliens fire like a cluster of pegs, they don't hit a single one. And this boat gets cucked to death. And it's amazing. It's just like fucking 20 explosions all on this one boat.
Yeah.
And like his older brother doesn't just die, okay? He's like the most killed guy ever. And so then the main character has his magical, like, my brother died transformation where, like, there's no more jokes about him, like, trying to beat a guy's ass because he looked at him funny, you know, on a boat.
Yeah, they try to cooperate. He actually rescues a bunch of the Japanese sailors whose ship was also sunk, but slightly less cucked than the other ship, and manages to rescue his rival. And they then operate the boat, capture an alien somehow. Basically, there's a point where it cuts away to the B-plot on the island, then it comes back, and there's about 16 people manning this battleship. No, a destroyer now.
Yeah, it's the destroyer.
One of them is Rihanna, who I appreciated the fuck out of just being in this movie.
Did pretty good.
She did good in the role. I mean,
Like,
it's
yeah.
not hard to play a hardened military badass who follows orders, and she did it with relative competency.
She didn't have to act, you fuckers.
That's fine.
So?
I don't mind that.
I've seen people fuck up that role.
Yeah,
okay?
everybody's seen that. She basically just...
Rihanna did a fine job. Like there was nothing wrong with her
I mean,
performance.
according to fucking TV Tropes, because that's the only website I can trust these days. This ad brought to you by TV Tropes.
Yeah, I wish.
Fucking, she based her performance off of the person who trained her on military jargon and tactics, and just copied her mannerisms and everything. So
Perfect.
She
You
did
know,
a good
that's-
job doing that.
Yeah.
What do you mean her performance as a military lady was based off a military lady?
You mean people don't know how to do that by default?
That's so they fucking yeah. Lots of shit happens in the second act. There's a really cool part where they use fucking like a cannon, a full blown cannon, to shoot one dude who's standing on a ship.
Yeah,
like they
they
point
just-
the cannon at this guy's head and he just doesn't notice.
They just bait. They just
And
bait
then
him.
she says the famous line.
Oh, mahalo, motherfucker.
They do this twice in the movie where somebody says like motherfucker and they cut it on the F because Because I guess to, you know, harken back to last week when we're like, what kind of swearing can you do in movies? I don't think you get a single motherfucker in a movie unless you're Captain Marvel.
What?
What? You guys don't think mother flirkin counts? Okay, that's very offensive.
That's fair.
My mother was a flirkin.
And they also got a motherfucker at the end of Infinity War in the Stinger. He goes, oh, motherfucker.
Yeah.
But wait, no, you don't get a motherfucker in PG-13. But they do it twice.
Yeah, they get away with the cutaway gag twice, which is a Michael Bay move if I've ever seen one. And honestly, we cannot emphasize enough that this movie is trying really fucking hard to be a Michael Bay movie. They tried to emulate the flares, but the flares had too much color in them, and the background wasn't oversaturated enough. They tried to implement the very swooshy handheld camera style, but it wasn't quite loose enough. They tried to implement the fucking rotating shot, and they couldn't do it right because they stopped it after it reached 3/4.
Well, that's because Michael Bay is a visual genius.
That's fair.
If there's anything that Michael Bay gets credit for, it's his aesthetics. And you can mimic his aesthetic by getting the gist of it, but only Michael Bay has enough asshole magic stored in whatever blazer he's wearing that day to make it work.
For sure. Eventually, the plot finally meanders its way to night out of nowhere, which was a really big confusion for me because I was browsing the internet while halfway paying attention to most of this film. Enough that I got the cool parts and skipped over the boring parts.
Fair.
But there was a point where it just was nighttime all of a sudden.
Yeah, it
and
kind of just does that.
at the time where the B plot, they're actually sneaking up on a camp of alien scientists that are getting ready to jury rig the broadcast station to catch a satellite at precisely 8:43 a.m. The fucking legless, spineless, and Tits McGee are all just lying out on a fucking... they're getting ready to do a Call of Duty mission, except instead of all of them going in, the one who has a gun included, they just send Spineless Man down, and he goes there, notices an alien dropship, and then grabs what he needs with his MacGuffin, and then turns around and there's an alien standing there, and he's shaking with fear, and then the alien just kind of like puts a hand on it to steady it, as if it's not doing anything. And I swear, I couldn't quite catch this, but I swear the alien said hello, and then it smash cuts to him running away from the shack where he grabbed his MacGuffin.
Yeah, because these aliens have convenient PG-13 alien qualities that, like, I've even seen more vicious aliens in, like, Mars Attacks. I swear to God, the aliens in, like, Independence Day, Mars Attacks do this thing where they just, like, if you see them, you're already fucked. Whereas these aliens have things where, like, if you don't point your gun at them, they're like, oh, it's all chill, brah.
Oh, yeah, there's a point where a Transformer spike orb just stands in front of a child, determines him harmless, and then attacks a column.
Oh yeah.
Because the column is hostile,
Oh my
apparently.
god.
Beam!
For a second when you said that, I thought it saw a fucking beehive and was targeting it.
I mean, fuck bees.
Tip to fuck bees.
So let's roll forward a lot. We eventually get to the point where the battleships sort of have done their weird brinksmanship with the alien ships, gotten some victories, but mostly it's still pretty cucked.
Basically, they destroy a destroyer, but the destroyer still manages to
They destroyed a frigate.
We don't call that. We don't say that word on this podcast.
Frigate.
Eventually, the main character's boat that they've been piloting the whole time gets fucking blowed up.
And they actually do have a really impressive CG one shot of a fucking Transformers orb tearing its way through this ship while the ship that launched it dies.
And it's really long for a CG shot. And they're like going back to fucking base. And they're just like, man, now we don't have a ship. I guess we're out of the fight. And then fucking Taylor Kitsch is like, no, we got a ship. It's just vintage.
Wait, no. You gotta go way back.
Why?
Because we gotta talk about the point where they actually fucking play Battleship.
Oh yeah.
So what
they
happens?
Established a fucking grid.
No. So what happens? And this is genius because you weren't paying attention because you were on your fucking phone.
No,
And I was trying to make a pizza.
I know exactly what they were doing. They utilized what are called tidal buoys. They basically detect tidal waves coming in from way out in the ocean based on elevation.
Exactly. So they were doing that, and then I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah.
But then so they were doing that, and then they recognized that hey, if we kind of just put this on a grid system, then we can kind of find out where they are.
They have a grid system that they already divide the ocean into.
Yeah. So they throw up a grid. And
it happens to correspond with C versus numbers.
It was
letter versus numbers.
So they're literally just like fire, Foxtrot 12.
Foxtrot 1-2 because you don't
1-2, yeah.
And we're watching, Monster Energy sponsored Battleship for the first time, and it's pretty fucking cool because they sink like 2 ships.
They
It
do.
takes them a second.
They do get a double kill, but after missing like thrice, and it's vertical launch missiles like you would normally see on submarines, and they cannot have that many on a single ship.
Yep.
They fired like 8 over the course of a minute.
And the character's too dumb to do the Sun Tzu thing, even though I think they evoke his name when he's first talking to Liam Neeson.
No,
where
it's not Liam Neeson. It's the Japanese guy is talking to Taylor Kitsch, and he says Art of War, and then the Japanese guy just looks at him and says, Art of War is a Chinese text, you fuck.
And
And the racial insensitivity meter dings by 1.
So it's just shoot before the ship's there. They don't do that like 3 times, and it's fucking ludicrous. So, they play a game of Battleship in the movie Battleship.
It was so great.
And then eventually they stop, they fuck off to the USS Missouri, and we have this sequence with the old people.
Oh yeah, so at the beginning of the movie they were honoring veterans, right? So they got stuck on the boat. And then they're just like, hey, we're old, but we still can fight, and we're gonna kill the aliens with you.
So they play the majority of AC/DC's Thunderstruck and get some really good footage if you're a fan of old World War II era battleships, of them reactivating the USS Missouri and also knocking over all the kitschy museum stuff that's around.
It was pretty cool.
They make a point of destroying a fucking vending machine that has toys of the USS Missouri inside it.
Yeah.
And then they have a really good action sequence where, they fucking fight an alien destroyer.
And break the laws of physics.
Break the laws of physics. Use some clever tricks that only work in movies to get the leg up on this ship and blow the fuck out of it. But they don't have enough firepower in the end, and that thing's about ready to fucking send the balls of death to the mainland, and everything's gonna get fucked in the end.
Not quite. Essentially what happens is they expend all of their ammunition, crippling the equivalent of the aircraft carrier from... If we're talking in game equivalent.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is it fires off 3 orbs of death towards their destroyer, but they have 1 round of high explosive ammunition, which they intend to use to level the transmitter that the aliens are literally about to plug back in after the girlfriend runs through all of the cables with a jeep, and then the military Mick just fucking boxes an alien.
Yeah, Lieutenant Dam.
Right. Also, fucking not TJ Miller saves the day because the alien's about to impale Lieutenant Dam, and then he just fucking suitcases him in the neck.
It's pretty great. Damn,
It's an awesome
you ain't got no legs. And but B plot ultimately needs a little bit of assistance. So A plot takes care of B plot's objective. So who's there to take care of A plot's objective?
Australia.
And on the this fucking fighter jet comes in and like shoots the missiles and saves the day with the this added firepower from above, godsend. And on the helmet of the guy implied who having done that, it just says Boomer. Because this movie aged almost as well as the quote from earlier that Rihanna had in the beginning, where she's like, oh, it's like a mutant cross between Donald Trump and Mike Tyson.
Oh my god.
As Taylor Kitsch is being an asshole on board a fucking military ship, as military people on board military ships be.
And he gets really offended that he called him Donald Trump, and I was like, dude, this was way before he was gonna run for office. Like, what the fuck is happening
He
here?
tried to run for office in 2003.
Yeah, can you believe, though, there was a time when
nobody
everybody had, the correct idea of how to think of Donald Trump? He's just that goofy asshole from The Apprentice.
Yeah.
And now we're in the future.
We're in the
What
throes of
happens is
impeachment.
The Apprentice.
Do it!
There can only be 2.
So, the day is saved thanks to the Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah.
And they go back to the mainland, and there's this really just jarring cut to happy military ceremony where all is well and everybody's getting accommodations for saving the planet.
His dead brother gets a naval cross, which then the picture and frame are handed to him, and he just has to hold it awkwardly.
Yeah.
It's that nice ending from episode 4 where there's like a nice little ceremony and all the heroes are there, and then it goes back to the character's main arc, which is that he wants to get the girl.
Because apparently this is a plot line that hasn't really been relevant for the whole of the movie. It's pretty much guaranteed that he has her in his pocket as long as necessary.
Well, in order to get the girl, he has to not be a fuck up, and everyone knows the only way you not be a fuck up in an action movie is to literally save the world. So he literally saves the world, and then he goes up to Liam Neeson, who's just standing there, even though he's a high-ranking military person, and that's never what they do. It's just like standing in the middle of a sidewalk.
The daughter brought him over.
Okay. And so the daughter's like, there, go ask him for my hand in marriage. And so he goes over and he's like, hey, can I like seed in your daughter and make children?
And he's just like, Spider-Man, don't fuck my daughter. And then he dies. And this movie, we actually watched The Amazing Spider-Man. That's the whole gag we've been getting at this whole time.
No, we didn't really like The Amazing Spider-Man.
So Liam Neeson tells him no and is like, yeah, but we can go discuss your surrender over chicken burritos.
And then the movie ends with Fortunate Son. Because it had to end with Fortunate Son.
And then this movie went on to domestically make about $65 million. China, it made $48 million. Russia, it made $21 million. Japan, it made $18 million. And in South Korea, it made $14 million. Now, did you guys know the Battleship board game, and most Hasbro products, even though Hasbro's headquarters is in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, most of their stuff is manufactured in China. So I'm glad that China finally paid us back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this was one of those. They tried to use the Transformers formula to make fun robot movie where the language, the lines aren't important. Nothing has to be poetic. Character motivations can transcend culture. It's mostly just about manly men firing guns at alien invaders.
And I gotta be
over a game of Battleship.
I gotta be honest, by the time the third act happens, this movie starts to get legitimately enjoyable if you are a fan of that kind of stupid movie.
Exactly. Like I've always said this entire time, you can't really like go into this and like expect like some revolutionary thing because you're just not gonna get it. But what you have to go in is this is a movie based on the board game Battleship, and
you're getting out of it what you're bringing into
exactly. And if you just go into it knowing exactly that, you're just gonna have a fun time. Like this is just a ride, and you just like catch all these little things, and you're just like, this is fun. I'm having fun.
And you can enjoy the sight of Rihanna.
Yeah,
I have a fucking theory that the reason this got bad reviews when it came out was because people had to see it in theaters. We got the pleasure of like getting to talk over this sometimes and like watch it at home, and that's a lot more fun. I actually enjoyed it this time around.
You have to fight your way through the first hour to get to the point where it's enjoyable. I will say there's some scenes of great to minor enjoyment in the first hour, but it really picks up after an hour into being a Transformers ripoff.
Yeah, because I feel like the beginning of the movie takes itself a little too seriously, but then like towards the end, but then towards the end, they know exactly where they are. Like even one of the old guys says like, they're not gonna sink our battleship, and then like when they fire that first missile, when they're looking at the grid, they go, it's a miss. and then like, it's a hit. Right. It's just goofy.
Apparently there was a novelization of this film, and in that novelization it opens with the brothers, who are named correspondingly Fuck Up Alex and Best Boy Stone. Apparently those are their actual names. Not one is a last name and one is a first name. The parents looked at this older brother and said, you shall be called Stone, and that is your name.
And you shall be Fuck Up Alex.
I don't like the idea of a novelization of the Battleship movie.
Well, it starts off with them playing the actual game Battleship, except it's not called Battleship because the book is not that stupid. Yeah. It's called Broadsides, which is a boat term. Well, it's got that going for it.
As far as board game adaptations go, this sort of reminds me, like the two that we watched, reminds me of sort of like the progression of Marvel. Like, Candyland is like this like shitty direct-to-DVD animated superhero movie that might have happened in like, you know, before fucking Spider-Man happened, or like you know the Roger Corman Fantastic Four, like what superhero movies were like in the beginning, sort of. And then Battleship is sort of like this expansion into like, okay, it's big, it's dumb, like a lot of superhero movies, but it's a good fucking time.
Transformers opened the road for a lot of movies like that.
Yeah.
We have Michael Bay to personally thank for the fact that this movie exists the way it does. Unfortunately, it bombed so hard that we never got another one.
Which is fine. I'm totally fine with that.
I don't know. I want to see the art department bring those aliens back.
Do you know what Peter Berg did with the rest of his career after this to this day?
What did he do?
He just kept making Mark Wahlberg movies. He's made 4 of them.
What other Mark Wahlberg movies?
The Mark Wahlberg movies are Lone Survivor, Deepwater Horizon, Patriots Day, and Mile 22.
I really want to see Patriots Day just because I have family in Boston who actually...
Working on a 5th one.
I knew like people who like were at the Boston Marathon, like near where the bomb went off, but before it went off they were just like, hey, you want to go get a soda?
Oh no.
So then they went to go get a soda, and then all of a sudden they just hear an explosion. They're just like, oh, good thing we weren't standing there.
Right. I think that Peter Berg is kind of back in his own personal hell, because when he made Lone Survivor, it made like $154 million off a $40 million budget, and he must have just been like, yeah, these fucking military fuckers, they'll pay me money. And then like none of his movies after that turned a really like a profit at all.
Lone Survivor was also amazing.
And they're all just like these military movies with Mark Wahlberg. He thought he had a formula, and no matter how many times he revisits it, he cannot make another Lone Survivor. He cannot hit the box office.
I vote he makes Battleship 2. I just want to see another one of these.
Battleship Brotemkin.
Battleship has Brotemkin.
So we've covered So Bad It's Terrible, So Bad It's Great.
And now next week, so I said that there's 3, right? But unfortunately, we do not have enough time to do a third movie. We don't have the energy to do a third movie.
Not this week.
Not this week, no. But next week, we're going to bring in my opinion, the best movie based off a board game. And it's critically acclaimed to be a very good movie. If you know anything about board game movies and you kind of like heard our title and you went, why isn't this movie in there? Just wait till next week. You know what it is. Just wait till next week. If you don't, then I'm going to show you guys a really good movie.
Daniel, just fucking say it.